Tonight, you will go to bed on purpose. You will choose a time, kill the lights, and expect your body to shut down for 8 unbroken hours. If you wake at 2 in the morning, you will reach for your phone and call it a problem. But the real answer is far stranger. That 2 a.m. waking is not a malfunction. It is a schedule. For almost all of human history, the night was not one long block of unconsciousness, and nobody expected it to be. It was 2. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment at the National Institute of Mental Health. He gave volunteers 14 hours of darkness every night. That is roughly what a human being gets in winter without electric light. He gave them no instructions about when to sleep. For the first few weeks, they slept enormously. They were paying off a debt they did not know they had. Then things settled, and their sleep split in half. 4 hours down. 1 to 3 hours awake in the middle of the night. Then 4 hours more. Here is the part that matters. The volunteers were not distressed. They lay in the dark, calm, half dreaming, in no hurry. Ware tested their blood during those middle hours and found high levels of prolactin, a hormone your body also releases during deep rest. The state he described looked less like insomnia and more like meditation. Your ancestors did not lie awake at night. They visited. The historian A. Roger Akirch spent years digging through court records, diaries, medical texts, and novels written before the industrial age. He kept finding 2 phrases dropped casually into sentences, never explained the way you would mention breakfast. First sleep, second sleep. Between them was a window, and people used it. They fed the fire. They checked the animals. They prayed. They talked quietly to whoever was lying next to them. Some got dressed and walked to a neighbor's house. Physicians of the era advised couples that this hour was the best time to conceive a child, because by then, both people were finally rested. Then came gas lamps, then bulbs, and within 2 generations, those phrases disappeared from the language entirely. Nobody voted on it. Humanity simply compressed the night, and then began paying doctors to explain why it will not stay compressed. So, what filled the hours before first sleep? Fire. Not for warmth. For talk. The anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent decades with the Juhonsi of the Kalahari, and she did something almost nobody had bothered to do. She recorded what people actually said, then sorted it by time of day. Daytime conversation was sharp and practical. Land, food. Who was not pulling their weight? Complaints, mostly. After dark, the subject changed completely. Around 80% of nighttime conversation was stories, people who lived hundreds of kilometers away, described down to their habits, ancestors, the dead. Jokes everyone had already heard. Think about what that means. Firelight did not just extend the day. It changed the content of human thought. Daylight belonged to logistics, and darkness belonged to imagination. And the boundary between them was a circle of flame perhaps 3 meters wide. Every myth you have ever heard was workshopped in that circle for thousands of years before anyone wrote it down. The dark outside the circle was not neutral. Researchers tracking lion attacks in Tanzania found they cluster in the days after a full moon, when the evening light drains out of the sky. So people watched the moon the way you watch a battery icon. Full moon meant travel, visiting, long walks between camps. New moon meant stay close and keep the fire fed. You still pay that tax. At the top of a dark staircase, your hand finds the switch before your foot finds the step. You would expect all of this to add up to more sleep. Long nights, deep rest. Ancient people, gloriously unhurried. They slept less than you do. Jerome Siegel and Gandhi Yedish measured sleep in 3 hunter-gatherer and horticultural groups on 2 continents, the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane in Bolivia. No electricity, no alarm clocks, no screens. Average sleep came out between 5.7 and 7.1 hours a night. That is not more than the modern average. In several cases, it is less. They also went to bed around 3 hours after sunset, not at it. Sunset was not a signal to sleep. It was a signal to gather. Then David Sampson found something stranger still. He tracked a Hadza camp continuously for 20 days, watching who was asleep and who was not. Across more than 200 hours of observation, the total time when every single person in camp was asleep at once added up to 18 minutes. 18 minutes! Out of 20 days, someone was always up. An older person with a shallow night, a teenager who never wanted to go to bed, a nursing mother. Nobody assigned these shifts and nobody was thanked for them because nobody knew they were happening. The variation in human sleep timing was itself the security system. Which raises an uncomfortable question. What is a light sleeper? You have probably called yourself one, or married one. You have probably treated it as a defect to be corrected with an app. But in a camp of 30 people, that person is the reason the group survives the night. Their brain is doing exactly what it was built to do, in a room where there is no longer anything to guard. This is why your 2 a.m. waking feels the way it does. Not groggy, alert. Slightly wired, scanning, listening. Your body is running an old procedure in a house with a deadbolt. And notice what you do next. You do not lie there in the dark, drifting the way VAERS volunteers did. You pick up a bright rectangle, hold it 15 centimeters from your face, and tell your nervous system that the sun has returned. Then you feel bad about being awake, which is a second, entirely optional problem stacked on top of the first. The middle of the night was never empty. It was the most social, most narrative, most quietly conscious part of the human day, and you have inherited every instinct for it while keeping none of the setting. There is a version of that hour still available, no screen, no clock, no verdict about how much sleep you are losing, just lying there in the dark, letting your mind wander somewhere useless, which is precisely what it evolved in that gap to do. You will probably not remember the wandering. VAERS volunteers rarely did. Tonight, you will go to bed on purpose, and if you wake at 2 a.m, in the dark, strangely alert, listening to a house that no longer needs guarding, understand what is actually happening. Nothing is broken. Something very old is simply keeping watch and waiting for the fire and the stories and the second sleep that always used to come.